Hello, everyone. I'm Liana Salama, the Vice President of Marketing for the International Housewares Association. Welcome to another episode of our Material Matters series. This series is a collaboration between IHA, Springboard Futures, BridgeTower Media, and Material Connection, and was created with a singular mission: to bring the home and housewares industry new inspiration and information about material innovations and the opportunities that they present for both retailers and manufacturers. This episode, Material Innovations Changing Home and Housewares, explores how material advances are transforming everything from functionality to environmental responsibility. Tom Mirabile, consumer trend analyst for IHA and founder of Springboard Futures, and Allison Zisko, executive editor of Home Accents Today, are joined by Dr. Andrew Dent, Ph.D., the executive vice president of research at Material Connection, a global leader in material selection and product development.
Andrew, one of the things that we wanted to sort of start off with, just to make sure we get everybody, singing from the same sheet of music, and to get people to broaden their ideas of really what we mean when we say materials. A lot of times when we talk about materials, we think of like the end result. It's a pot, or it's a pan, or we think about a substrate, rather than thinking about materials as possibly just an ingredient that really helps that product perform better or, have new functions. When we look at that, can you give us some example of the type of breadth that Material Connection works in? The breadth of types of materials, things like that.
Of course, Tom. Yes, I mean, one of the greatest advantages and one of the biggest challenges we have is that we work with such a wide range of different materials. If you take a simple product, let's say a frying pan, so we would look at the base material of the pan itself, the steel or the aluminum, that material. We then think about the coating underneath, which is used to protect and also perhaps for aesthetics. We'd also think about the non-stick or scratch-resistant surface coating inside. And then, of course, there's the handle as well. So there you've got 4 different materials, and each of those might themselves have ingredients inside them. So we're looking at every single raw material to see whether it's possible to innovate in that area. So, when you see a product, understand that it's made of maybe 10, 15 different materials. And each one of those, whether it's the main body of the product or whether it's a small coating, whether it's even the color of the coating, all of those can be innovated. And we sort of look at all those aspects because, it's possible to change the look, the function, the overall sustainability of any product by just considering one small section of it, and that can be pivotal, can be a make or break when it comes to a product. If you look at some of the some products you recognize and covet because of their color. Think about KitchenAid and the way it's actually used color as a central point of its product. So that's pigments inside a plastic or pigments inside a coating. That itself is a very small component, but it has a very big impact. So we look at all different types of materials, and we understand that each may play an important part. And so try and, with our clients, almost pull apart the product itself to understand where are the potentials for improvement. How can we improve that product? How can we make it more functional? How can we make it more covetable? Greater benefits for the consumer. That can come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes.
Do you feel like the innovations that people come to, the innovations that people are looking for, have moved from something that is more appearance, like you brought up KitchenAid, good example, because they have identified with color. Have things changed over the years in terms of people looking for something that is less visual and more functional in what it delivers, or has that pretty much stayed the same, visual difference? Or?
Sure. I mean, when I first started out in my career, probably 20 years ago, there were 3 main components. You had price, aesthetics, and performance. Those are the 3 things. So, performance then became benefit. So, what's the price of it? What does it look like? And then, what's the benefit to me as the consumer? Now, in the last 5 to 10 years, those 3 have become 4, because now you've got this very important one of sustainability. So, if we thought about what was important 10 years ago, it was, how do I improve the look and benefits of the product through, is it special effects? Is it function enhancers? Do I give an additional function within that product, whether it's water resistance, non-stick, easy clean, that sort of thing? Do I improve durability? Do I make sure it can be used for longer? So there's a whole bunch of performance and aesthetics, and of course maintaining price as well. Now we want all of those, but we also want it to have the added criteria of sustainability. So that sustainability has created an overarching importance over every aspect. So every time I think about if I'm putting a special effect in there to change the color or the way it looks and feels, does it have sustainability criteria and credentials? If I'm thinking about an increased function, if I'm adding an increased benefit to the product, I want to make sure that in doing that, I haven't then taken away from any, I'm not increasing toxicity concerns, or I'm not making it harder to recycle. So we've added the sustainability without taking away of any other of those components. So it's now a more complex issue.
Andrew, can you discuss for a moment the difference that you see between something that's sustainable versus something that's environmentally responsible?
Of course, Alison. So yes, we have used the words interchangeably. If we think about environmentally responsible, we think, okay, that's therefore good for the planet. We think about sustainable. Sustainable has a twofold usage. It can be environmentally responsible. It can also mean that the product is, can be used again and again. It has a business model that is sustainable, so it makes profit and is successful in the market. So sustainability can be more than just environmentally responsible. So what we tend to do then is we tend to base our sustainability or environmentally responsible terms based upon quantifiable data. I don't like to use the word sustainable. I don't like to use the word environmentally responsible because it's too nebulous, it's too wide-ranging. Better to use this product reduces water use. This product contains 50% recycled content. This product has a 50% reduction in overall carbon footprint. This product is lighter, therefore easier to ship. Those are the things that consumers can understand, and they're things that you can also you can quantify. So I don't think of it, for many people, it is a yes or no when it comes to buying. But I think having that additional information says this company, this brand is committed to not just doing good, but sort of telling me about it and making sure it's easy to understand. So I think just putting eco or green leaf or sustainable onto a product no longer works. I think consumers have understood that is greenwashing. They want to know specifics. They may not decide based solely upon that, but it's good to know.
Are the manufacturers and retailers that you're dealing with and you're interviewing and you're looking at their new product development, are they trying to teach consumers more about the elements of sustainability?
To a certain extent, yes. I mean, I think sustainability is obviously a growing movement. It gets stronger every day. Everyone's very mindful of it. A lot of retailers have put out their corporate responsibility statements. As Andrew mentioned, we all know consumers are invested in it, and manufacturers are slowly doing their part. But as Andrew was kind of alluding to before, it does sort of require a coordinated effort, and each segment has to do its share. But in answer to your question, yes, some retailers I find are moving towards greater visibility in their goals and how they're getting there, and informing their customers about what they're doing, because customers demand it, customers are looking for it. So it's a complicated process, and we're not here to talk about price, but there's a big cost concern and whether consumers will put their money where their mouth is, right? So, consumers want more sustainable products, but at the end of the day, are they going to spend more money on them? That continues, in my experience in talking to manufacturers, that continues to be an issue and a concern for them.
Well, you had brought something up, Allison, that we wanted to talk to Andrew about. I think the perfect time for that. You had said, how does Material Connection, in dealing with new clients and dealing with existing clients, how do you help clients manage risk? How do you make them, I'll let you take the question, but you said, how do you make people comfortable when it's such a big decision to go into something new? And you had a couple of points on, but I thought it was really salient. It's not an easy position, it's, you're taking a risk, that's how do you make people feel comfortable with that, Andrew?
Well, I think they have to come to us. They have to be at a point where they've realized that that a change is necessary. I think you have to be ready for it yourself, because we can lead you to water, but we can't make them drink. We can basically provide them with all the resources, but if they're not willing to make that step, it can be very challenging. But I think what people realize is that at some point in their product's evolution, they will need a 2.0. And that 2.0, of course, it can be an upgraded software. It can be, a different look and feel. But also, an excellent way to do it is through innovation. And I think innovation has its challenges. I think there is, sometimes there's a misconception of how how easy it is based upon some very high-profile successes. But I think for a lot of companies, what they quickly realize is that it will take time, and it's likely to have iterations. So don't expect to solve all the problems in one go. Maybe and what we find with clients is that if it's a larger brand, they will have a capsule collection. So they'll introduce innovation in a small section. Just a few thousand pieces, or 20, 30,000 pieces, rather than basically coming across every SKU. So I think that's so try small, and then fully accept that this is a process where you're continually evolving. Maybe even tell the customer, this is part of our innovation series. We're looking to improve, and get feedback from the customer. And so if there are challenges, even if there are mistakes, then almost use that as part of a conversation you have with the consumer. And you have to accept that if you are going to innovate, if you're going to do something truly new, there is some risk. Yes, always.
Andrew, if we could switch gears for a moment, we're talking in terms of materials. Can you talk a little bit about materials that are currently being used in packaging? As we all know, shipping and e-commerce is driving retail sales right now. What type of products or materials, I should say, are you looking at to facilitate the problems associated with e-commerce? We know that products are spending a lot more time on shipping containers and in ports, and what effect temperature and humidity might be having on those packages. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of packaging materials?
Sure. Yes. We have had a sea change in what we expect of our packaging now. And
no pun intended.
that has it has multiple facets as well. We had sustainability, and that continues as a main theme in any changes in packaging. There's also, as you said, we're moving more to e-commerce, and the expectations of that package are going to be different. Previously, you had the responsibility of taking that package to the retail store, and then basically you're safe to go. The challenge now is that often that product will go through multiple different steps, and also it's more likely to get returned as well, and returned in the same way that it was shipped. So obviously some of the large online retailers, Amazon, etc., have expectations for your package. They give you guidelines, etc., to make sure that it's more likely to end up in the consumer's hand in the way you want it to. But also there's less focus on shelf space now. A lot of products now are going through e-commerce, so the only way I see that product before it ends up on my doorstep is actually an image where packaging often isn't even shown. So therefore, in some instances, the packaging becomes less important as an aesthetic component, but much more important as a functional and safety component. As you mentioned, whether that is if it's sitting, unfortunately, on a Chinese dock at 100 degrees Fahrenheit and 160 degrees Fahrenheit and 100% humidity. So if it's sitting there for quite a while, you've got to make sure that packaging is going to survive that and not look wilted and not suddenly bleed into the product itself. There's a lot of issues with making sure that nothing of the packaging ends up on the product.
Do you advise people? Yes, this is technically number 7, but just know that about half the nations recycle it. So while it's a coming, be aware that this could be something that kicks back as opposed to using this.
Yes, we have no vested interests. There's the advantage with many materials consultancies that because we're not beholden to any brand or any institution, we can be honest and we can tell them, okay, you have chosen this type of packaging. The likelihood is going to end up in a landfill. We've actually talked to clients about the biodegradability of its packaging, and do you want it to biodegrade out there in the environment? Do you want it to biodegrade in the sea? Do you want it to biodegrade in a landfill? and there are different additives you can do for that. So, you can tell them, okay, well, at the moment of your product, of your packaging type, 80% of it lands in a landfill. 20% gets recycled, and this is how it gets recycled. So do you want to, design for recyclability? Do you want to design for end of life in a landfill? So yeah, we are very clear about what is currently happening to their type of packaging out there in the world. And of course, it changes from global location to location. So we're very clear about that, so they can then make a considered decision about what they want to do with that packaging, how they design it, how they think about its end of life.
We'd asked you to pull together some materials that you thought represented or will represent some interest and innovation for home and housewares. What you got?
Okay. What I can do is I can share my screen. Let me do that. And I'd focus these ones because we talked about packaging, and for this section, I want to at least talk specifically about packaging, just because I think it's for a lot of people, we class it as a low-hanging fruit. It's the one thing you can, if you're thinking about sustainability, thinking about change, packaging is actually one of those things that you can change significantly without necessarily messing up your basic product benefits. Think about the ways in which, even through e-commerce, it's possible to create a wonderful unboxing experience. As long as you can get your product through all of the Amazon bits and pieces, as long as it gets to the consumer, nice and in perfect condition, then the unboxing itself can be a wonderful experience. So I think there's a lot of innovations within packaging that can help you, differentiate your product, or at least differentiate the experience of your product, without necessarily, breaking the bank or even fundamentally changing the way you manufacture and sell your product. Also, there's an awful lot of interest in sustainability, because this is an area you can actually make an impact. Packaging is the one, I can keep my frying pan for the next 30 years. But the packaging itself, I'm only going to keep for as long as it takes for me to rip open the box. So there you've got materials which have a much greater impact on the environment. So therefore, it's a simple way to consider lowering impact, and making shelf or unboxing impact just through that material change, without necessarily, as I said, impacting your general business. So
I feel also it's something consumers are incredible. It's one of the things about sustainability and about environmental responsibility and awareness that consumers are it's one of the things they're very sensitive to, so that a lot of times that's something that they've gotten on it. They're very critical of it, when they can be. So it's, I think you're right. I think it's an important aspect.
Okay. So let me show a few of them. I've got just a few examples. Okay. So we mentioned clamshells. So the move has been towards, okay, well, if I can't use plastic, if I want to go plastic free, if I'm worried about my overall sustainability goals, and a lot of them now, concerned about plastic out there in the environment, so what can I use? I can use paper pulp. So there have been a lot of innovations in paper pulp which have got much better in terms of surface quality, in terms of overall sustainability, in terms of the ability to protect, but also to enhance the product itself. I can see that there's a good example here. This is Golden Arrow. And you can imagine the product coming in this type of clamshell or secure product. The product itself will sit in there nicely. It's a very good demonstration of safety and security, but also the package itself is kind of beautiful. You've got some nice colors, you've got nice textures, etc. So I think molded paper pulp, by necessity, has come in leaps and bounds because of the problem with clamshell. Of course, you don't have the transparency, but often with e-commerce, you don't need it. Right. I don't need to see this product on the shelf because I've basically bought it from an online retailer. So I can see the product image on the website, and I get this product, and it's well packaged. The paper does aesthetically very well in terms of safety. I've also got coatings and treatments which make sure if it does get a little humid in there, the thing doesn't break apart. So I think there's a lot of innovation in molded paper pulp that has come because of this challenge of sustainability. So it's worth sort of re-looking at that packaging material as a unique and very interesting and aesthetically pleasing way to present your product.
It's not your mother's egg carton. I think one of the things that
exactly. Yes. This is essentially very much more beautiful. Yes.
Because as soon as you say paper pulp, people's minds go to the things that they know are made of paper pulp. So it's I think it's great.
Very nice.
Of course, this of course is interesting just because it shows you the way we've come. If you're in the store and you see a product and you want to learn more about it, This type of coating now enables you to do that very easily. It's a very simple idea that, okay, the whole surface of this printed packaging is like a QR code or a barcode. So you put your phone against it, and the printing itself, the phone recognizes it and immediately can either provide information in terms of availability, it can provide information about sort of ingredients, it can provide all the information you want to, including going to a website to learn more about the product. So this, to me, is a great example of how the packaging could look like you want it to, but still is able to provide information to your consumer. And it's all through the printing, and there are versions which go through printing texture, some which go through an invisible ink in a way, others through actual icons on the image that are recognized by the phone itself.
Well, actually, something like this, I mean, my first reaction was the speed. It can improve speed of transaction because, like when you're at CVS and you're self-checkout and you're trying to find the barcode, where is it? You're going to straighten out the plastic. But what it's covering, like, it's going to scan easier too.
Yes.
So it's really clever. Bring on.
And then we've talked about temperature. So now there are interesting innovations which allow you to assess what happened to your product. So let's say it started in medical, because making sure that drug delivery, it doesn't go above a certain temperature and therefore loses its efficacy. So it started in drug delivery. It started originally actually in things such as, in where they were transplanting hearts and other organs. You want to make sure that heart never goes above a certain temperature. You need guaranteed that it never it warmed up and therefore bacteria could start growing. That then moved into cold chain in things like pharmaceuticals. It's now all sorts of other products. Even if you think about direct-to-consumer food deliveries. I don't want my fish to have gone above a certain temperature. And this type of packaging can tell you what temperature it experienced at what dates. It's always below that critical line.
Well, what's also great about this is as technology evolves, see that commercial where they, expired. So it's like, we'll be able to look at something that's been sitting in the cabinet a while and say, this is dropped below the temperature in our home. So it's something that can eventually translate over to consumer use, which is really good.
Yeah, I think if we think about sustainability in general, the amount of food which is wasted because we're not sure. This thing could tell you it's never gone above a certain temperature, you're still good. So it'll extend that expiration date as long as you kept it, carefully and safely. If you didn't put it out on the counter for a while, it can tell you, this is still good to go. Never went above that, into that dangerous zone.
Fascinating.
It's really intriguing. That's fascinating.
It really is.
I wanted to include styrofoam alternatives because so many of the products when we unbox it, we've got the styrofoam and it falls apart and it gets on the floor and it sticks to your clothes. It's terrible, and we know it's terrible. There's nowhere really to recycle it. It just goes in the bin and it fills up our trash. So here are some of the alternatives. Far left, you've actually got a fibrous nanocellulose, which is still experimental but getting there, which offers a soft and secure way of packaging. The one on the far right is our old friend, the mushroom packaging, which is now being formed into shapes and has that equivalence to styrofoam in terms of impact resistance. But at the end of its life, potentially you could throw it out there on the ground and it would break down safely. It breaks down in a compost, in the ocean, out in the environment, in a landfill. It can go, so it doesn't last. And then the one in the middle is styrofoam, but styrofoam using a compostable material itself. So it looks and feels and performs just like styrofoam, all of the engineering requirements to make sure if you do drop your toaster, it's not going to impact the product at all. So
I'm going to ask you to back up for just a second because I didn't even know about mushroom packaging until we started talking to different people about what packaging was frustrating and so on and so forth. And actually, it was one of your people, Jennifer Gumpert. We had a fascinating conversation about mushroom packaging. It wasn't until near the end that I said, wait a second, do you mean that's just a working, people, this is made out of mushrooms? And she was like, yeah, what rock have you been living under? But I just want to make sure that people understand that is actually made out of a plant material, and that, because I didn't even know it existed. So
it's directly out of mushrooms. It's grown in the dark with no water, no fertilizer, needs no pesticides. It'll grow in a factory floor if you want it to. In the way that we get mold and mushrooms growing anywhere where there's enough moisture. So it'll just pull it out of the air. So this can be grown quickly and easily and into shapes that mimic a styrofoam packaging.
It's amazing.
Wow.
like mushrooms are the darling of packaging.
Until they take over the earth. You know what I mean? It's like they grow anywhere. They're like, oh boy.
They've now started using them for construction boards, for architecture. We've seen them as paneling almost for flooring. We've seen them as, so yes, they get used in all sorts of different applications. There's a whole renaissance for mushrooms. They can be used for durable applications as well. They don't necessarily need to have things that fall apart very quickly. They can have the same sort of durability as a piece of wood. You've got to process them in the right way. But yes, there's a lot more that mushrooms can do than you would know.
I'm going to just break off for one quick second because we talked about aesthetics before. And do people come to Material Connection to find things that have nothing to do with products? I mean, some of the things that we've seen that I've seen in your library are things that I look at and I say, wow, a booth wall done with this could look like this. And again, I'm stepping off of sustainability for a moment, but sometimes do people come to you and say, we need something that's just flashy and different, or we need a new, LED, something we can roll up when the booth is done, or are they really just looking for products? Like, you have categories like, visual people coming in, or,
Oh, yes. Yeah, we work with a lot of the major brands with their visual merchandising, whether it's a trade booth, whether it's a pop-up store, whether it's actually their main flagship store, because that's often the way in which, increasingly now, it's an experience. Product purchasing is an experience. If you want to get someone into the store, you've got to give them more than just a bunch of products on the shelf. You want to give them an experience, and a lot of brands have understood that. So yes, they are trying to draw people into their stores through that experience, and that can mean: is it flashy? Is it sort of bright and shiny and very high impact? Or is it more subtle? Is it a more sort of like wellness experience? Do you have additional services or things you can do in the store beyond just purchasing the product? So many companies have thought, okay, how do I get the person to stay in the store? Offer them something else. Is it coffee? Is it a massage? Is it is it a co-branding where I can sort of my product plus another product where someone would and they're sort of compatible in a way. So retail environments are key in maintaining that brand presence and also brand value. So, certain companies are recognized by the stores they have. So I think, yes, and we're asked by those sections of the brand as well to find different materials. And that can be as important as the packaging or the product materials.
Oh, yeah. Coffee and massage. I just need to know afterwards where you shop. We'll get to that later. Because I'm like, you want a bag? That's where I shop.
It was interesting. Cadillac House, which was actually a retail store for Cadillac cars down on Huntsman Street in New York City, had a coffee bar. It had a place to hang out because they realized that the majority of car showrooms tend to be not a particularly pleasant experience. You're always hassled by the dealer, etc., and there's not really some place you want to hang out. So it decided, okay, let's show our cars. You won't necessarily purchase them here, but you might come in for a cup of coffee and just to hang out and experience the wonderful, the wonderful car itself at the same time. So sometimes it's not even necessarily trying to push you to design within reach was a great example. How do we show our products? You can't purchase them here. We understand you're going to do that online. How do I give you the best experience of that product so you can see it in the best environment? So yeah, so retail is key and very important for a lot of our clients.
Sorry, I'll let you get back to what you were saying.
Of course. My next one was, we talked about direct-to-consumer shipping of product. If that product needs to have an understanding of what temperature it's been experienced, you also got the biggest challenges we've seen with a lot of packaging is maintaining certain temperatures. I can remember my family had purchased these food bars, and I think the food bars for some reason needed to be kept cold. So the number of food bars was one box which contained 6 bars, therefore 6 meal replacements. And the packaging, once I'd removed it all, was a total of 4 feet high because they had they had all of the other individual, they had a carbon dioxide block in there to keep it cold. They had insulating, and just the amount of materials just for these. And then, of course, you had the actual product itself, which was in a box and then in a wrapper, just to keep it cold. And I think the challenge we've had with this direct-to-consumer food is that how do you ensure that not just while it's being shipped, but then you're in Florida and your product ends up on your porch or on your doorstep and stands there for 6 hours because you're still at work.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have the product wilt. You can't have it go above that temperature for food safety, but also just for aesthetic reasons. So there's a lot of new ways in which people are trying to achieve that, and sustainability obviously plays a role. So here's two examples of, on the right-hand side, very simple box, but inside you've got water-soluble starch packaging, and then you've got biodegradable plastic bags around it to make sure that you get safety. On the left-hand side, you've got, again, paper trying to replace plastic. And there you've got insulation inside. You've got paper. So you've got paper, cardboard box, paper, eco-chill sort of wrapping, and then inside that you've got a non-plastic material, which can then improve insulation. So, sometimes in the Amazon shipping or direct to consumer, your complexity goes way up, but your consumer still expects the same direct from the store experience. They want it to be fresh. They want it to look good. They want to make sure that when they pull it out, there is that unboxing of your food or your temperature sensitive product, and therefore you've got to go all in to make sure that you maintain that experience. And doing it sustainability has proved a challenge, but it's possible. So those are my materials. I thought there was sort of a good range of what we're seeing in terms of packaging innovation, sustainability, and also something new to sort of have better control, better consumer experience, and just make sure it's safe, because the poorest sustainability decision is where you didn't provide enough packaging and your product comes imperfect and they send it back. So no matter how sustainable you're trying to be, if it doesn't come perfect and safe, you've lost all of those advantages you try to achieve.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been enlightening, and in its own way, sort of like it makes it seem daunting in a way. But I think there's so many exciting things that are on the horizon. So it's it's been a pleasure.
Yes,
and
thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Happy to provide. And I think. You said it's daunting, but think about how many companies have been so successful once they've gone on that journey. So there are companies that are defined by their innovation, and a lot of the new startups are also using innovation as a selling point. They can move more quickly and be more adaptable than some of the big companies. So they're understanding that innovation can be a cornerstone of their success. So yes, it can be daunting, but if you're willing to sort of make that journey, I think there are some real potential advantages to do it.
Join us again, Allison. It's been great working with you as always. And,
Same here, Tom. And
we'll
thank you again, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Allison.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our Material Matters series. If you have any materials-related questions for the Material Connection team, their address, dedicated to IHA viewers, is materialconnection.com/IHA. And to clarify, that's Material Connection, spelled CONNEXION.com/IHA. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you'll tune in for another episode of Material Matters.